When The Walking Dead Season 1 premiered in 2010, it was immediately clear that AMC had stumbled upon something special. This wasn't just another zombie thriller, it was prestige television wrapped in genre storytelling, with compelling characters, gut-wrenching moments, and the kind of atmosphere that made it feel bigger than most movies. The first 6 episodes proved television had changed forever. More than a decade later, it's hard to argue with the influence of The Walking Dead. 11 seasons, multiple spin-offs, and countless imitators have cemented its legacy. Still, rewatching Season 1 in the shadow of everything that followed is often a disorienting experience. What once felt groundbreaking can now seem inconsistent with where the series ultimately went by the time the final episode aired in 2022. That's not to say it isn't still one of the best seasons the show ever produced. Season 1 is tight, atmospheric, and endlessly rewatchable, but certain elements stand out as awkward reminders of how much The Walking Dead changed. These issues don't ruin the experience, but they're impossible to miss when revisiting AMC's zombie epic from the beginning. Season 1 dangled several plot ideas that went nowhere. Early teases of smarter zombies and strange foreshadowing went completely ignored. Jenny Jones in The Walking Dead Season 1. Rewatching The Walking Dead Season 1 means coming face-to-face with plot threads that were abandoned almost instantly. The most glaring example is the subtle suggestion that the undead might be capable of more than just stumbling and biting. In the pilot episode, Days Gone By, Morgan's wife seems to recall memories of her former life, a chilling moment that was only semi-followed up on by the appearance of variant zombies many seasons and spin-offs later. Then there's Jim, Andrew Rothenberg, who experiences a haunting moment that feels eerily like prophecy. His dreamlike vision of digging graves ahead of the Atlanta camp attack carries an otherworldly weight, hinting at a supernatural element. Unfortunately, nothing ever comes of it, leaving the scene to feel more like a strange anomaly than part of a bigger plan. These dropped threads don't ruin the story, but they stand out badly when rewatching. Knowing the series never returned to the idea of smart walkers until decades later in the Walking Dead timeline makes the early hints feel like missteps rather than deliberate foreshadowing. Season 1 plants seeds that the franchise simply left to rot. Rick survivors highlight how much TWD relied on character deaths. The original Atlanta camp shows how few characters actually made it to the end. Dale looking worried in Season 1 of The Walking Dead. One of the hardest truths to accept on a TWD rewatch is just how expendable Rick Grimes, Andrew Lincoln, original group of survivors turned out to be. Outside of Daryl, Norman Reedus, Carol, Melissa McBride, and Morgan, Lenny James, who wasn't even part of the Atlanta camp full-time, the rest of Season 1's cast are long gone when the Walking Dead series finale arrives. At the time, the frequent deaths kept the series thrilling and unpredictable. The emotional punch of losing characters like Dale, Jeffrey DeMunn, or T-Dog, Iron E. Singleton, reinforced the brutal world of The Walking Dead. However, rewatching Season 1 makes it hard not to see most of the survivors as doomed, since only a tiny fraction of them actually matter in the long run. This reliance on death as The Walking Dead's primary source of drama becomes much more noticeable in retrospect. While it worked to keep tension high, it also robbed Season 1 survivors of lasting relevance. Knowing how things play out, the Atlanta camp feels less like the start of a long journey and more like a lineup of characters waiting their turn to be written off. Laurie really is as frustrating as you remember. Rewatching Season 1 proves Laurie's reputation as divisive is well earned. Laurie by the campfire with Carl in Season 1 of The Walking Dead. Laurie Grimes, Sarah Wayne Callies, has long been one of the most polarizing figures in The Walking Dead. Some fans sympathized with her impossible situation, raising a child in the apocalypse while her husband and best friend clashed over survival. Others found her inconsistent decisions and strained relationships exhausting. On a rewatch of Season 1, it becomes clear why she's such a divisive character. Her complicated love triangle with Rick and Shane, John Bernthal, doesn't help her case. What starts as a storyline with emotional potential quickly sours into melodrama. Laurie's inability to communicate clearly often escalates situations unnecessarily, making it easy to see why audiences struggle to embrace her. The problem is that Season 1 doesn't give her much chance to shine beyond that conflict. While later seasons attempt to deepen her role, first impressions matter. On a rewatch, Laurie's flaws feel magnified, cementing her place as one of The Walking Dead's most frustrating characters, especially compared to the complex and nuanced survivors who came later. Frank Darabont was essential to the show. Season 1's character-driven storytelling owes everything to Frank Darabont, a zombie in a suit in the pilot episode of The Walking Dead. Looking back, one of the clearest distinctions between Season 1 and later years is the influence of showrunner Frank Darabont. Known for The Shawshank Redemption and The Mist, Darabont brought a cinematic, character-first sensibility to The Walking Dead. The opening 6 episodes reflect his fingerprints everywhere, from the quiet emotional beats to the deliberately paced storytelling. Darabont's focus was never just on zombies or gore. Instead, he emphasized the personal struggles of survival, making sure audiences cared about the people first and the apocalypse second. Scenes like Rick reuniting with Laurie and Carl, Chandler Riggs, or Morgan grappling with his undead wife linger longer than the action because of that approach. When Darabont exited after TWD Season 1, the difference was noticeable. Later showrunners often leaned more heavily on shock value and spectacle, sometimes at the expense of the nuanced humanity that defined the debut season. Rewatching Season 1 makes it clear just how crucial Darabont was to setting The Walking Dead apart from the start. Shane was one of the best characters in all 11 seasons. John Bernthal's portrayal of Shane made him one of TWD's strongest figures. Shane arguing with Laurie in TWD Season 1. Few characters in The Walking Dead left as big an impression in as little time as Shane Walsh. Introduced as Rick's best friend and eventual rival, Shane provided a layered, morally complex perspective that the series desperately needed. On a rewatch, it's obvious just how much he elevated Season 1, and how much was lost when he was killed off early in Season 2. Shane's descent into volatility gave The Walking Dead its first taste of human conflict that rivaled the horror of the undead. His complicated relationship with Laurie, his tension with Rick, and his increasing ruthlessness made him fascinating to watch. Unlike many later villains, Shane was both sympathetic and terrifying. Revisiting The Walking Dead Season 1 underlines how much John Bernthal's performance shaped the tone of the series. While his death was narratively necessary, it left a void. For all of TWD's memorable villains, few matched Shane's complexity, making him one of the best characters the franchise ever had.